Good day, all. It is a beautiful day out. We've actually, here in South Texas, we've actually had some days that wasn't 105, or at least the heat index still was. But sitting down with Joe Morris again from Condition 1 Combat, and we've been sitting here talking back and forth about some different things. But today we were discussing earlier, the topic of response and how people respond to things. I know we've all done it. We've all laid awake at night thinking, God, I wish I would have responded better to that situation. I kind of have a Rolodex of those things. But when we look at response time, really life is just a bunch of responses. That's every day you're responding to something, and we all respond differently. Like I go with people that live in the inner loop. When they hit traffic, they don't think anything of it. They're whipping and weaving through side streets. I live in Huffman. If I go down there, I'm like, hair up on the back of the neck, ready to strangle somebody, because I don't deal with that all the time. And I think the more we deal with things, the better we respond. That's part of growth, right? One of the things that I try to teach, one of the things that I've learned is not to respond off emotion, right? Especially that initial emotion, right? Because that's always going to come with that's always some kind of negative feeling, right? Absolutely.
And you're going to respond in a negative manner. And I think it's very important that we, especially our youth, we need to start teaching them, kids. I mean, that's what I've told, especially about starting school, right? And I know from experience, because I was a young man who couldn't always, I always responded to emotion instantly, impulsively. I would go as far as to say, and it never turned out good. The reaction, because then you're immediately in a conflict. You're acting off emotion and ego, and
that's a big one.
Yeah,
ego.
100. Yeah, absolutely. And I really believe that if we can start to teach our younger generations to, hey, don't act on emotion so much. Don't, especially that initial emotion, right? Yeah. Take a step back.
It's hard to do.
It's very hard to do,
especially in younger age. But
yes,
I think you're hitting on something. Well, or even in what you guys do there at Condition 1, of people that are coming in and they're learning a skill that, number one, that can save their life, but it's also teaching them how to respond in certain areas. How do you respond when somebody grabs you? When somebody grabs you by the back of the neck, and you learn all these different things on how to respond in those situations.
Right, and I truly believe that a lot of those negative responses that initially come from that emotion can be I want to say relegated with confidence. If somebody's confident, then you don't have to react in that emotion, that emotional response. You don't have to have an emotional response to something. Yeah. A lot comes with, and that's what we teach our kids at the school, right? Is confidence. Be confident. We'll play games where they have to. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with martial arts. Maybe a little bit of balance, right? But they've got to jump from like one pad to the other, and sometimes you start spacing these pads away. Right, and there's more distance between them, and you see them before they jump. Right, they look a little bit scared, like they're not sure if they're going to make it. But once they do it, and maybe they don't get it the first time, right? But they try again, and now you got confidence that they're doing it over and over and over again, right? And I think that a lot can be learned on the mats, especially with jiu-jitsu and things like that, with grappling, right? Because you're getting immediate feedback from somebody.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
You're getting immediate feedback.
Sometimes it comes in the form.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's very important.
Yeah. And even what we were just saying about ego is, if you don't learn when to give up, and you can take that to life and in all principles. If you don't learn when to say, okay, enough, well, then you're either going to go to sleep or you're going to lose that arm.
Right. I really think that, we filled a lot of calls this week already. We started taking calls on Thursday, and school out there started on Wednesday. Very next day, we're taking calls already from parents. You know, kids getting picked on already. You know,
I saw that
yes.
program y'all are putting on the 26, right?
The 26, right, from 1 to 3 p.m. It's a free Bullyproof Heroes seminar. Um,
That's awesome.
Free for ages 7 to 11. You know, come in. It's free. It's going to be ran by Matt Smith, our program director, taking over the kids program too, right? So,
Okay.
yes, things are about to get real
Nice.
real good over at Condition 1 with our kids program. So
And y'all are off Rayford, correct?
we're off Rayford, 606 Rayford Road.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that and I thought, man, what a great program. You know, unfortunately, bullying happens, and bullying isn't the same from when we were kids. You know, you were able to get away from it, and now you can't. And you never, no parent ever wants to see their kid picked on. But in my opinion, I believe getting picked on helps you grow character and helps you realize just because you say something, but it's not ending there anymore. It's going on to social media. It's going on to phones, to video, to recording, and you know, to have a program to teach your kid to have the confidence to stand up for themselves, because there's some, you and I both know there's some jerks out there.
Yeah,
at every age
there are, and yes, there are. I think a lot of it does come from social media and stuff, and it does. But a lot of what these kids are following these. So we start fielding these calls, and we're hearing how bad it is, and I always wonder, well, is it really bad? You know, relative to whenever we were in school, you know, or is it just, you know, maybe a bigger school, or is it actually getting worse? And I really think that it could possibly be getting worse for these kids, because a lot of the things that they are following on social media and TikTok's horrible for, you know, for kids to be watching, and because everything on there, the things that they're laughing at, the videos that they're watching, they generally have some sort of nefarious act with them, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always some kind of mischief or something being done that they find extremely funny. Now, you know, some harmless practical jokes are one thing, but whenever they're seeing this over and over, and then they're seeing other people getting picked on, or people throwing shade at them on TikTok or on a social media platform, and they think that's okay, right? They like these people doing, and then same thing with celebrities. You'll see these celebrities going back and forth or something on social media, and they idolize these people, and I think that is where it transfers over to what they're doing in school.
Yeah.
You know, I think it has a direct connection.
And it's like in every facet, even the things that adults watch and their kids watch. Like, I was watching some like Entertainment Tonight or whatever, and they were showing clips from like one of the Real Housewives where these beautiful women are throwing tables over and cussing each other and acting like Neanderthals. And when kids see that, they think, oh, well, that's the way I'm supposed to act. And I was just talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about masculinity. And masculinity isn't the guy that goes around trying to beat up every single person he comes in contact with. That's somebody along the way that had a broken response, and that's how they feel validated. And there's something in their life they didn't address. But true masculinity is learning how to control your response, how we talked about violence under control. You're a protector. But one of the key points for masculinity to me is, can you learn?
Right. For me, it's being virtuous.
Yeah.
You know, it's being virtuous. Knowing your role and doing your and operating in a virtuous manner, right? With everything we do. I think that is truly masculinity right there.
In that response, you know, sometimes we respond to people out of our brokenness. You know, like, you know, in my dealings and workings with the church and people, after I went through a divorce, man, I just kind of backed away from everything and everyone. And then I realized nobody asked me to. I did that on my own, and I secluded myself. And then I'm like, wait a second. This doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this?
Right.
That's because my response was broken. My response to the whole situation was just completely broken. And when you can get your emotions in check,
Right.
it really doesn't matter what goes on around you.
Yeah. Because you're confident. Because you're confident in what you're doing.
And
I've learned so much through life and gotten through life by being confident. Right. But I didn't learn it. A lot of my emotional responses when I was young was because I wasn't confident. right? I wasn't self assured,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't these things. And it came out, those feelings came out as, or those beliefs came out as arrogance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overly trying to be that person that instead of understanding that, hey, it's okay to feel this way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make you, but that's part of growing up, right? It doesn't make you who you are. You just gotta, you grow through those things.
You learn,
You
and
learn.
and
You learn.
now here we are in our 40s, and we look back at some things and we're like, oh God, what was I thinking?
I wasn't.
That's
I was
just
acting
it.
on emotion.
I was acting on emotion.
Look, rational thought goes out the window whenever. That's it. Rational thought goes out the window whenever you are acting on emotion.
I think a good example, and hopefully I explain this well, about emotional. When people say, men are more emotional truly than women, or women are more emotional than men, but then you look at people who have their stuff together, and people be like, why are you so emotional? Go back, and you want to see people who get stuck in their emotions. Go back and watch the footage of when the Beatles first came to America. From teenage girls all the way to grown professional women are standing out on the tarmac crying when they walk by. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm talking about, we are emotional people. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not going to cry when anybody walks by, but we are emotional people, and somebody that's tied into that, they express emotion that way. That's the only way. Basically, they were overcome with emotion. The only way they knew how to handle it was cry and scream. And I think when you learn more about yourself, that you have more, I'm going to use the word outs. When you get stuck in a pattern and you act a certain way, I think it's a good time to step back, get around somebody that's been through what you're going through, and realize you have more outs than what you realize. And sometimes when we feel like we have our back against the wall, that insecurity pops up, and then we lash out and realize you have outs. And the best thing I learned in life, the older I've gotten, if I don't know, don't act like I know. Just keep my mouth shut and be like, I don't know.
Right. I keep wondering why you had me on this podcast. Oh, shit.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
Yeah, emotion builds a wall.
It does.
Right.
Yes.
It does. And think about this, how like people go through divorces. People, and every time there's emotions involved, or whatever a situation may be. Maybe it's not a divorce. Maybe it's maybe it's loss of a child or something. But these walls get built up, and that's when you can stop growing. Then
Yeah.
right, because you're not stepping outside those walls anymore.
It's like if you are 23, 24 years old and something in your life tragic happens,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know how to cope with it, but if you don't effectively address that scenario and that situation in your life, it doesn't matter how much time goes by. When there are certain things that happen that trigger that emotion thought process, you become a 20-year-old again, even if you're 50 years old, because you divert back to all you know in that situation because you never took the time to better that situation. And that is the thing about reaction, is in your response, we are real easy to see it in other people, and it's very hard to ever see it in ourselves. That's true for everybody. But when you can sit back and say, could I have reacted and responded better? There's been times, and most response, Joe, most people's response, I have found a lot of times, isn't because either person they're responding to is right or wrong. They just don't understand each other.
Oh yeah, that's called miscommunication,
Yeah,
which is huge,
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 like,
right?
That's not what I'm saying at
Right.
all. And then
Right.
and then they start laughing and shake hands. You're like, well, I thought you meant, but to be a great person that is secure, has great response, you also have to learn to become a good communicator. And there's a fine balance because everybody communicates different. And so I have noticed in my life growing up that when I'm around certain groups of people, I think you probably understand this too. Your brotherhood, the guys that y'all hold to with a bond, like the Bible says, that's closer than the love of a woman. Y'all communicate different with each other than you do with other people. So when I get around people, I talk to some people differently. I don't change my thought process, but I realize they communicate differently than I do. So when I get around them, like I got friends that everything they do revolves around golf. So when I'm with them, that's what we talk about. And then I'm around somebody else and they're like big into like chess and different things like that. Well, man, I'm going to meet you on your level, but you learn to communicate to different people because not everybody communicates the way you communicate. And I think we've all been around somebody that is socially awkward. No, they're socially awkward in your circle. Maybe with some of the people they hang around, they're normal in their group. It's just they communicate differently. And it took me a lot to learn. It took me a long time to learn that.
Right. Yeah. T and I talked about this the other night. We talk about it quite often. We built our own little universe inside our house, right? And that's, that's cool. That's kind of, that's our little deal. So no matter what other people think outside of that, and we don't care.
Yeah.
Just like when we, I talk to my buddies in from the Corps, that I served with, and we communicate way differently than most people do. And, you see that a lot, right? We've got our own little things that we talk about, but there's confidence built into that too, right? Because we know we could talk about those things there, right? So, I've tried to tell Cyrus here lately, he's going back. He started school. Yeah, I was real nervous about him going back to school, and he's already starting to get his little circle, right? He's already got, Austin's my friend, so and so's my friend. It's like, okay, so what do y'all do? What do y'all talk about? And they all get to sit at the same table. But I've also told him, like, look, go there and have a good time, learn. Meet new friends, and if people they're not always nice to you, who cares, right? Who cares?
Just keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter, right? And he's already talked to him about, yeah, Daddy, they're going on. I'm just like, yeah, okay, talk to you later. He's going on about his business. You got those little, and I love it because I'm hearing about the little interactions.
Yeah.
I'm hearing about the little things that are going on, and because he's socializing with a different group now.
Yeah. And when they do that, they learn so much.
They are learning so much,
and you learn how. And it's hard. I'm not tormented in my thought, but like sometimes it's hard to let my daughter go certain places when I don't fully know. We live in a screwed up world, and as positive as I want to be, sometimes I don't. Like if I don't know the parent, I'm like, well, So, anyways, it's awesome to me that my daughter in certain scenarios, and not negatively, this isn't negative at all, but she's gone and visited friends from school, and she comes home, she's like, Dad, it's nothing like at our house. And I'm like, well, baby, because people are raised differently. This is our normal. Like you said, this is our universe.
Yeah.
But to them, that's their universe. And she's learned that there's some people that their communication is harsh and kind of in your face. She was dealing with a parent that's just like always. And I said, that's how they communicate.
Right.
And she's like, I don't like it. I said, you don't like it because you hadn't been around it. But if that's how we were from the time you were born, that would just be your normal.
Right.
So you learn. So she's seeing how different people respond.
Yeah, people are different.
People are different.
People are different.
And it took me a long time to learn that. I wouldn't go as far to say arrogant, but
but we probably thought everybody should be like us.
Everybody should be like us. Do you know who T.D. Jakes is? He is like he started off. He's a no nonsense pastor. I mean, probably 17,000 members. I mean, just like says stuff. You're like, but and you'll get this, and I didn't get this at one point, but I get it now. So he was younger and he visited this church, bro. The pastor gets up, and the pastor wasn't being braggadocious, but he said, I have never had a drop of alcohol touch these lips. And I have never touched nicotine in my life. And I've been married to the same woman since I was 15 years old. I mean, just spelling things out. And T.D. Jakes said inside his head, I'm at the wrong church because you cannot relate to me and you cannot help me. You can point me towards God, and I commend you and I respect you, but I got to go somewhere where somebody.
I'm at the wrong church because you got married at 15 years old.
Yeah. Well, Well, and TD Jakes is in his 60s or 70s, so
Right. Okay.
that was normal back then. 14, 15 years old.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's when they had to make the marriage age like 15 or 16 because there was so many people getting married so young. But I like what he said. He's like, and what he was saying was, I commend you, I respect you, but you can't communicate to me. I can't really receive. It doesn't mean what you're saying is not great, but we all need to be in a position where people can relate and know where we're coming from. And that helps with the way we respond to certain things. When we feel vindicated or understood, don't we communicate with a little more confidence because we don't have to over explain ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about something a minute ago, and it got lost. Talking about being confident, right? And yes, you were talking about what was it you mentioned? You mentioned something earlier. Shit, I lost it.
Bro, I was up till like 4 in the morning.
I know.
So I
Oh well.
oh well, it'll come back.
It'll come back to us. Oh yes, that was it. You were talking about the time, how it was back then,
Yeah,
right? And it was normal for stuff back then. And again, I think that has to do with a different time and place, right? I think times have changed. Gosh, social media is really changing everything. It is changing everything, David. It is. We are getting information so fast, and so are our kids.
Yeah, I have really cracked down on no social media at all.
18.
I was thinking 16, 18. Yeah, they doesn't a lot of these platforms recommend that you be at least 16 years old, except for the Instagram kids and things.
There's a difference between recommending and making it mandatory.
That is very true. They recommend we do lots of stuff, but
right. Recommendations and mandatory, and that's something that has to come from the home.
Absolutely,
That's something that has to come from the home.
And I'm not on TikTok. But I downloaded at one point. Like, this is a while back, and I think I'm like 90% of all people out there. Most of the time that I sit there and scroll through my phone, if you get a reel from me, it's because I'm going to the bathroom and I got time to just sit there. And so, it's hilarious because I'll send somebody like, you must be going to the bathroom. I'm like, well, yeah, but man, I'm sitting there scrolling through when I first downloaded TikTok, and I'm like, when you scroll through and you first start, it's creating an algorithm for you. And I'll be scrolling through, and there's like all these 15 and 14-year-old girls dancing, and I'm just like, I don't want to see this crap.
It's almost like they steer you to it.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
And I'm like,
and so are they doing the same things whenever,
I don't know.
How do they know the age of the other person on the other side of the platform?
Absolutely.
And that algorithm doesn't care.
No, it doesn't care at all.
That algorithm is completely agnostic to that, to who's on the other side. It doesn't care.
And the response you get from certain things you put online, and I know everybody tries to build a social media persona. There's a lot of people who do. Mm-hmm. Why do they call them influencers? That's what I don't get. You got a bunch of people who follow you.
Well, that should be a red flag right there.
Yeah.
That should be a red flag. Influence. Why do I need somebody to influence me to do anything? Right? I should be confident enough that I don't need somebody to influence my decisions for.
We're going to pay you to make our kids stupid.
Yeah.
Like some of these influencers that have 10 and 20 guys. So I was trying to explain to Peyton this, and this goes along with response. So she wears out now. I can't remember the guy. He's from Tennessee, but he runs dogs, and he goes hog hunting and bear hunting all the time. She has wore his page out, and I tell her, you can watch that stuff all you want. But every now and then she's got this one show that she watches, and they show clips from all the other. It's kind of like back Talk Soup was for our generation. And anyways, they're playing hide and go seek, and the winner gets $10,000, and they're playing and film them. And I looked at her and I said, baby, that's not real. Well, no, that's the money. I said, nobody gives somebody $10,000. I said, but they're desensitizing these kids like, Mr. Beast.
$10,000 is just given out, right?
I'm going to burn this $1 million yacht down, and and there's some guys that have this house here in Houston, I can't remember their
I
names,
do.
but like they smash all the windows of their house and break stuff constantly and take up expensive cars and tear them up. And I'm like, these kids are growing up thinking just, well, that's just how things are. No, that is so abnormal. Like,
But they're getting likes, they're getting clicks, and that's what I mean. It's always something like that. That's
so my response to that is every time, hey, if I'm not going to watch much of this, but just as long as you understand, baby, this is not real.
yeah. We've cut Cy out. We caught Cy was starting to watch some of that, and we were hearing the "Hey bros," and I was like, wait a second, what's going on?
Where is that coming?
You know?
I'm not your bro. I'm your parent.
Yeah. So I mean, we got rid of that pretty quick. But he was watching that kind of stuff too. We don't care if he watches, educational stuff. He wants to learn. That's awesome. But don't be just on there watching people break stuff and doing things that influence them to act in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that's decent. That reaction. That's where it can be tied back into the reaction, right? They're not reacting to things that are when they react to things, they are reacting to things that they don't matter, right? In the long run, they don't matter. What somebody says, what somebody does, they're acting on those feelings. And they're being desensitized to it by watching stuff like that on TV and watching, like you said, the ladies react, right? Seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you see the violence that's out there. I mean, look at the violence that's out there.
I was having this conversation with somebody just recently, and not to put fear in them, but they wanted to get a gun, and I said, "Have you ever shot a gun?" Well, no, but I need to go get one. I said, "No, you don't need to go get one. Before you ever go get a gun, learn how they work." Well, how do I do that? I said, "You do know how the internet works." I said, "Go to the gun store, get with somebody who knows what they're doing, and hold 15 guns. Find what fits your hand perfectly." But the reason they want to get a gun is they lived in la la land until something happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happened, they're like, I'm unprotected. And
well, no shit.
Yeah, precisely. So I'm like, you need to go shoot. You need to practice with your gun because your response time with the gun, if somebody hasn't ever had to pull a gun on anybody, and thankfully I've only had to do it a couple times in my life, if you have to pull a gun on somebody and you're not practiced, you're probably going to fiddle around in your waistband and not know what to do because your adrenaline is so through the roof. You need to practice pulling that gun out. But what I'm getting at is you need to learn to respond correctly in scenarios. And that response time, nobody can ever practice getting carjacked. Nobody can ever practice getting, raped or mugged. You can't practice that. You can go through those scenarios in your mind, but you never really know how you're going to respond. But I do believe, like training, like what you guys do and giving people training, it gives you that cognizant mindset that you're responding even before something happened.
Well, we always talk about situational awareness and knowing your surroundings. But when you start talking about somebody being under attack and somebody attacking, there's a lot of variables that go into that you can never train for because there's too many.
Yeah.
Right. They're never going to be the same. Is it wet outside? Are they bigger than you? Are they faster than you? Are they more than you? Are they do they have a weapon? There's all these variables that you cannot control. The only thing that you can control is being out there and training and how much time you put into it. Okay. And that's something that Ryan Hoover said one time that made a lot of sense to me. Right. Was that, you can only control how much you prepare for those events. And that's true. That's 100% true. You have to be prepared. You have to put the time in on the mats, right? You put the time in on the mats, and you're never going to be fully prepared for it. It's just not how it works, right? But you're prepared. You're more prepared than you would have been, right? Yeah. You've been there before. You've been under that stress. You've been underneath somebody, or you've worked with somebody who is trying to oppose their will on you as you are trying to oppose your will on them. Yeah. Okay. That is it. And if you are not out there training with a resisting opponent, if you are training in a system or some type of discipline that allows your training partner when you're drilling to go from point A to point B or whatever that goal is you're trying to achieve with no resistance on the other side and no friction, you're training to fail.
You mean
100% you're training to fail.
you mean it's not like those training videos where online where the guy's like, okay, look, move your right hand towards my face.
No, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. And I see these videos out here with these people, putting on these demonstrations that there's no freaking. Of course, when you do a jiu-jitsu, you want to show it, right? But whenever you're completely drilling it and you never drill it under resisting opponent, what happens whenever what's your reaction going to be like that out there then?
Hey, you really hit me.
You're going to have the oh shit, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not the time to figure that out. Right?
We're sitting no.
That's not the time to figure
not.
like, oh shit, you can't Google that in the moment.
No.
What do I do now?
You can't say timeout either.
No.
Okay, timeout.
No.
Speaking of response, I don't know if you saw on the Facebook or the news the shooting that happened a mile down the road.
No, I didn't hear nothing.
So right here on 2100.
Did I hear about that? Yes, I did hear about that.
And that
I saw something come across. I don't know the details.
So from this is coming directly from the police department.
Okay.
There's a gentleman who was driving on his golf cart up and down the road.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
And then when the homeowner came out and said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" The guy's like, "Hey, you go back in your house," because he's on his property behind his fence. He's driving his dogs crazy. He's like, "Man, you need to get out of here." The guy gets in his golf cart, has words, hauls butt, runs through the fence and tries to hit the guy. Well, he had his pistol on him, and he double tapped him. And I mean, it's horrible it happened, but there's some people like, well, he shouldn't have done that. What should he have done? Let him hurt him? And his response, like the police said, his response was merited. It was justified.
Yeah, his life was his life was in immediate danger.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to run you over with any type of vehicle, your response is, your life is in danger. Your response needs to, your escalation of force needs to go there.
Response time. Think how many, and this is my thought process. A lot of people have their own. Think how many people would be at home with their families now and alive right now when the police just said, "Hey, keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Stay in the car." Think how many people would still be alive that just started resisting. People say, well, the police shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have resisted in the first place, because the second you resist, that police officer knows one thing. If he's not going to comply, he's going to try to hurt me. And if he can get his hands to a gun, to a knife, to anything, he's going to. But people's response times, people who respond with emotion, we said this on the phone earlier, the prison is full of people that responded out of emotion immediately, and then they're sorry, but the damage is already done.
Yes.
The damage is done.
Right.
You can't unpull that trigger. You can't undo certain things.
No, and I look back and I'm like, damn, that very easily could have been me at one point in my life, right? That again is acting on emotion and ego. I don't know what the situation was down there. I don't know.
I don't know
what was
fully.
said.
Yeah.
But I don't. That emotional response, maybe were alcohol involved.
Yes.
Yeah. See that, that's going to elicit an emotional response.
I had this conversation about alcohol with somebody yesterday, and they were expressing like, I kind of become a different person when I drink, David, and blah, 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 blah. And finally I just said to him, if anybody had to do any mood-enhancing deal, I would almost rather people smoke marijuana. You know how many funerals I've done for people that have killed or been killed while drunk driving?
Been some bad decisions made through alcohol. I know my best decisions, the worst decisions in my life were made from alcohol.
Dumbest things I've ever done is when I was, had a drink.
Well, see, that's the thing that even further removes rational thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. That right there combined with, emotion, you're going to have that kind of, not always. I know guys that sit around and drink a whole case of beer and their mood never changes.
Yeah.
But
those are called alcoholics. and even though their mood doesn't change, it's still not doing their body good.
Right. I'm not, and there's no way I'm advocating it. Right.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
Look at me. Matter of fact, I just celebrated 15 years the other day.
Congratulations, Joe.
15 years.
What an amazing accomplishment. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Man, I commend you, bro. I commend you. We talk about response. I just had my high school reunion, and I was talking to some people, and they were like, you know, not not digging, but like, man, you were wild when you were younger. And I'm like, heck yeah, I was. I'm like, I'm not anymore because I've lived a heck of a lot of life since high school, so I've changed a lot. I've put in the work in the areas I need to change. Because I had a smart mouth on me when I was younger.
Right.
I still do, and now I just hide it under the guise of sarcasm.
Right. We were mentioning something earlier about what people learn and the reactions in danger or whenever they're under attack. And I want to go back to that for a second. Right. That's one of the things, because there's also, not only are you preparing for, preparing for a bad event to happen, but you are learning how to be under extreme duress, okay, in the worst possible positions. You're going through fatigue, pain, and you're having to deal with it, right? Because, like you said, you can't call timeout. And when that person's on top of you, crushing you, it puts you in a place it puts you in a dark place, and you got to work your way through it. And I think that helps with those events whenever that happens, right? You go to those really, really dark places, and I'm not talking about it with your thoughts, right? I just mean you're in a bad position, and it helps you overcome things, and there's growth there. And I think that is the most important part of martial arts training is the growth that comes from it.
Let's take a break and let's come back and talk about the growth and response.
Yes,
that's perfect right there.
Right. Yeah, that is